Coming up on Bloom, meet the menopausal Marine, helping women through this difficult phase of life.
For me, it's just all about educating, Gayle. There are just no resources available for women. I learned very early on working at women coming in, had nothing.
And double certified nutritionist Martha Van Camp has tips to manage hormones as we age.
No one for decades has really been deep diving into the hormone care that we need as women in our 40s, 50s, and even early 60s.
Find out about the art of bread baking. We'll have all that and more as Bloom, presented by Lifeguard Imaging, starts now. I'm Gayle Guyardo. Welcome to Bloom, presented by Lifeguard Imaging. When guys hear the word menopause, many times that's code for steer clear. But one guy is embracing the subject matter and thinks other men should too. In fact, he's on a mission to help women and stand by their side as they make their way through this difficult chapter of life that can start in their early 40s. Joining me now is the author of The Menopausal Marine, Hot Flashes, Night Sweats, and Hormone Therapies, What Every Woman Needs to Know About Menopause, Eric Rittmeyer. Eric, it is such a pleasure to see you in person.
Oh my goodness, this is like the best day of my life. In studio with you, this is so great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I know you have a lot of incredible advice for women out there, but we need to address the elephant in the room. There might be people out there going, wait a minute, what is a Marine and a man doing talking about menopausal issues? So what got you on this journey?
It doesn't quite go together,
Yeah,
right? It's
right.
kind of crazy, which is, I respect that. For me, it's just all about educating, Gayle. There are just no resources available for women. I learned very early on working at my medical facility that women coming in had nothing. There was nobody they could turn to. They were getting bad information, and they were all going through the same stuff. It was the hot flashes, night sweats, brain fog, insomnia. So for me personally, I latched onto it. I became obsessed with helping women. I just researched it, I immersed myself in it, and decided to write a book about helping women to understand what they're going through and how to get answers.
I think that's really good because a lot of women go through menopause, and I think psychologically, and I can talk from a female's perspective, when I started going through menopause, more so than the physical symptoms, it was the psychological symptoms, because I always thought of myself as a mom, someone who could bear children, and it almost feels like somebody comes in and just snatches your youth away from you. But what's interesting is it doesn't have to be that way.
It sure doesn't. I mean, as women, as moms, you guys do everything, right? Everybody comes before you. You got the kids, your parents, the neighbors, the strangers you never met before. It's like you need to focus on you. Women have to focus on themselves, and it all starts with arming yourself with information. So when you go to your doctors, if they tell you to just stop eating chocolate chip cookies and don't drink wine and take anxiety medication, if you're educated on what's going on, you can then push back a little bit and be like, hey, I think this is hormone related. I'd like to have my hormones checked, because women should not be deprived of quality of life.
I agree, and I'm so glad you brought up the anxiety medications, because those are being handed out like they're Skittles, and women don't necessarily, if you have anxiety and depression issues, that's one thing, but if you're having hormonal issues, that's another thing, and the two should not override.
Absolutely. And let's be realistic about the healthcare system, and this is not to say anything negative about anyone. There's just not enough time in a doctor's schedule to spend the time that women need to address these issues. On average, about 12 to 13 minutes. They're going to look for what's broke, and they should look for what's broke, but what ends up happening is things that should be addressed at the very root cause are just being covered up with some of these medications.
So talk to me about how your book empowers women.
This is all about just giving women information nobody's given them, Gayle. There was nothing I could find. There was no central resource. This is for me just giving women this book to say, look, I'm here for you. I'm not a medical person. I'm not a medical doctor. I've never had a period. I won't go through any of this stuff. But I'm here as a guide to tell you I'm fighting for you. I'm here to bring awareness to a topic that needs significant awareness. Every woman will go through menopause. Every single woman, either medically due to some sort of surgery, chemically due to some kind of treatment, or naturally due to age. If we know every woman goes through it, there should be resources, readily available resources for women to understand what their bodies are going through.
And I think it's important to note that this is not a one-size-fits-all treatment protocol. you should be going to someone who's willing to take the knowledge that you have and figure out what's best for you.
Absolutely. In my book, I wrote about this, Gayle. I call it GENMA, just education, not medical advice. I'm not qualified to give any medical advice. I'm just here to arm you with the information you need. So when you go to your provider, in conjunction with them and your family members, you can decide for what's best for you. A lot of my book talks about hormone replacement therapies. They're magnificent, but they are not for every single woman. There are things we have to make certain of that you're healthy enough to start on them. But again, it all goes back to dispelling the misconceptions and arming them with information.
Yeah, because a long time ago, decades ago, hormone replacement therapy was taboo, synthetic, you're going to get cancer, you're going to get this. Then now there are all these studies out dispelling that. And, you know, women are learning that there are safe protocols, and it's just a matter of deciding if you're a candidate, which needs blood work. And for me, I did some DNA testing as well. And then you can start diving into the different modalities.
The craziest thing about this, Gayle, there was one study that totally ruins women's health. It was the Women's Health Initiative back in 2002. To date, the largest randomized clinical trial for women's health. It was a $675 million study from the National Institute of Health. The takeaway from this was, if you're a woman on hormone replacement therapies, you increase your risk of breast cancer by 25%. Now, 20 plus years later, there's people that are fortunately going back to this study saying, wait a second, this is not right. There was information that was incorrectly extrapolated from the study. Let's dig deeper. For women especially, you're 8 to 10 times more likely to die of cardiovascular disease than you are breast cancer. So it's just really, really important for women to recognize their risk with any type of pharmacological intervention, get the facts on it, understand the benefits worth the risk, and then at that point make the decision in combination with your provider.
Yeah, and you're right, because and even with that, there's so many things. You can do a pellet, you can do sublinguals, creams. There are all of these different things. There are aggressive forms. There are more graduate into it. So you don't have to be scared that just because you're going to get hormone replacement that you're going to be stuck with some medication.
You're absolutely not. And we talk about pretty much immediate menopausal symptom relief. I've seen this time and time again with our patients internally. But that's also the long-term benefits. Bone health, brain health, heart health. The number one leading cause of death for women is heart disease. Why is it that women have a 10-year heart protection over men up until the age of 60? All of a sudden, women become more susceptible to that. Could it be because they lose estrogen at 51 when they go through menopause? Neurodegenerative disease, 2/3 of Alzheimer's patients are women. Osteoporosis, you don't want to see the stats on hip fracture surgeries over the age of 60. These are all things that studies have shown estrogen can help to provide protection from.
All right, Eric, you're amazing. Congratulations on the book and all the incredible things. I do need to point out that, you know, Bloom is almost celebrating its 4-year anniversary, and you were one of the originals, you know, providing incredible content even before we made it to Channel 8's platform. So thank you so much.
Back at you, yeah. I love being here. Thank you.
All right. And Eric is sticking around for an extended conversation later on Bloom, and we are thrilled. He joined us on our podcast, The Bloom Health Club, in the WFLA Now Streaming Center. You can stream the full episode anytime on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. We will be back with more Bloom right after this. You're watching Bloom, presented by Lifeguard Imaging, saving lives through early detection. Call now 813-582-5222 to schedule your scan today. Aging is an inevitable part of life, but it doesn't mean that our health has to decline as we grow older. Joining me now with ways to help manage our hormones as we age and avoid weight gain is double certified nutritionist Martha Van Camp. It is so good to see you.
Glad to be back.
So hormones as we age, I mean, they really work against us when it comes to so many things, including weight gain.
Absolutely, and so you have to remember this. It's way more than just the 3 or 4 hormones we may think of as feminine hormones or female hormones. We really have 50 hormones in our body, and each hormone is a message carrier, communication to our cells. And so when we think about aging, our goal is really to keep our cells young, but in order to do that, we have to really think about being proactive with all of these 50 hormones. And if we had 2 hours of a show today, we would talk about all of them, but we're going to really focus on those 3 or 4 female hormones.
Yeah, because a lot of times we talk about hormones when we're in our 20s, but as we age, the conversation falls flat.
The conversation drops, and you know, as Eric was just saying, it's really interesting. I call it check the box medical care. So if you're in your teens or 20s, you go see your doctor, check the box, maybe you get birth control. If you're in your late 20s or 30s, go to see your doctor, check the box, maybe you're pregnant and they treat the pregnancy. After the pregnancy, kind of that female hormone care goes way down. And no one for decades has really been deep diving into the hormone care that we need as women in our 40s, 50s, and even early 60s.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. A lot of women wait, including myself, to get the care we need when menopause hits, or we're even menopausal, like we've gone through it, we're officially through it. But really, this is something that women can start thinking about at a much younger age.
Absolutely. And so if you think about how most women like yourself would wait until you're perimenopausal or full in menopause, that's too late. Let's be proactive. You can think about working with a really good hormone doctor or a really forward-thinking functional medicine doctor in your late 30s, early 40s, and be proactive about tracking where your hormones are, tracking your estrogen, your progesterone, your estradiol, which is the estrogen, and then even your FSH number as well. And so a lot of women don't even think about testing for the FSH, which is your follicular stimulating hormone, which would clue you as to where you are as you're approaching or even full in on menopause.
And why is having this information, and you gave us specific questions to ask for, and a lot of them we know progesterone, we know testosterone, we know estrogen, but you mentioned some other ones.
That FSH is really interesting. If your doctor starts tracking that, even in your early 40s, let's say you're tracking that every 6 months or once a year, you're going to see that number inching up, from maybe in the teens to around those mid-20s. And depending on the lab, in that mid-20 range is where, if you see your FSH level in that mid-20 range, that means you're really then just starting menopause. And so that's a good clue of, oh, well, that would make sense because I was feeling depressed or anxious, or I was experiencing that midsection weight gain, or I was having that brain fog, which are all these symptoms of perimenopause and then menopause. But if you're tracking just even those 4 female hormones, you're going to have a lot of pieces to the puzzle as to why you're feeling a certain way and experiencing certain things.
Now, you and I talked to you very candidly about pretty much everything. Pretty much off camera. And I do think it's important for women, if they're going to start seeking treatment, to understand that it's a little bit of a process, and that's okay. It's okay to see how it rides out. Go get another blood test in 2 months, 3 months.
Another opinion.
Let your body know how you're feeling. Communicate that. Like, finding this balance, which once you achieve it is absolutely amazing, but don't expect that to happen overnight.
No, correct. And just like you and Eric were talking about, we have options, right? We have this hormone replacement therapy option, but the way your body reacts to perhaps maybe an estrogen supplement versus the way my body may react to an estrogen supplement could be wildly different, even if we were sisters, related by blood. So I think it's really important to just get second opinions, really play the long game. This is not a short game here. Play the long game. If you're proactive about treating these hormone things that you may have, or unbalanced hormones in your 40s, then by the time you get to your 50s, your menopausal symptoms could be negligent. That was my personal experience. And look, I'm not saying every woman will have this experience, but I was so proactive in my 40s in having some hormone replacement therapies that as I saw my FSH number hit menopause, I have no symptoms. No symptoms. So that is a possibility, but as you said, you got to play this as the long game and realize that your body, your sister's body, your best friend's body is all going to react differently, but make it a challenge. Almost make it a game to feel like, how can I find the best treatment for me to be the best advocate as I'm going into this long-range plan of going through menopause, perimenopause. You don't have to suffer.
Man, once you find that balance, it's a game changer. All right, we're going to share Martha's story on BloomTampaBay.com, and coming up, the menopausal Marine Eric Rittmeyer is joining Martha and I for an extended conversation on all things menopause and hormones. Bloom will be right back. You're watching Bloom, presented by Lifeguard Imaging, saving lives through early detection. Call now 813-582-5222 to schedule your scan today. We are back talking all things menopause and hormones with double certified nutritionist Martha Van Camp and the menopausal Marine Eric Rittmeyer. Thank you both for being here.
We're the dream team. I like that combo.
Absolutely.
I like it. I
This
like
is the
it.
perfect balance. All right, so let's talk about what happens to hormones during menopause.
I think the best place to start probably is to get a definition, right? I think there's so many misconceptions about when it starts, the ages to expect. Perimenopause is where it all normally starts. Early 40s, 43 is average age for that. About 85% of perimenopausal women will experience the vasomotor symptoms, hot flashes, night sweats. 51 is average age for menopause, which is retrospectively medically defined as 12 consecutive months of no period. If you have those in place, you kind of know what to look for in advance. So when you start in your early 40s experiencing these symptoms, you don't freak out and be like, oh my goodness, I'm too young for this. It can start kind of young.
They just start to tank. You know, you may have a rise in some estrogen in your mid 40s, but then by the time we get to that typical age of 51, 52, they all just start to tank. And that's where we're seeing this brain fog, the weight gain, the frustration, the low sex libido, all those things, sex drive, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say, and that you both would agree with me on this, that the medical community is late to the party when it comes to treating women. In fact, you wrote an entire book, The Menopausal Marine. You educated yourself. You know, you said you're not a doctor, but you did arm yourself with all of the information. I mean, you help us all live a grittier life. I've interviewed you for years now. Now you're helping women take control of their health care.
It's crazy for me, Gayle. I couldn't believe when I started, my obsession began with this topic of hormones. I couldn't believe there were no resources. I was Googling, I was looking, I kept coming back to just nothing. It was empty-handed. So finally, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to totally immerse myself in every study, in every interview, in anything that's ever been done to learn as much as I possibly can, put it all into the book. And it was all about educating women, because for as difficult as menopause is, we have pharmacological interventions. We have things that we can help with if you're healthy enough to help with all these symptoms. It's a pretty easily correctable issue. It just never got any attention.
And the balancing act can start early, and that way women don't need to suffer.
Right. It becomes a situation where, as a woman who is in her late 30s, early 40s, suddenly you're thinking, why do I feel anxious or depressed? Is it because I have 5 kids running around, or maybe my husband works too much, or the dogs are driving me nuts? Why am I feeling anxious? Why am I not sleeping well? Why am I suddenly gaining weight? And so if you step back, you realize, wait a minute, there was never a doctor who was proactive and said, look, when this happens in your early 40s, this means you're on your road to perimenopause and menopause. Just like when a young teen girl gets her period, the mother is there to guide her through that entire experience. No one's really guiding women through their 40s and early 50s through this life-altering change.
Yeah, you basically face it like with a walk of shame.
Completely alone and shameful.
And you feel like you don't want to talk to anybody, which is why
Right.
on Bloom we're raising this topic again and again and again.
And it's funny for me, Gayle, because being a guy who was never, I won't go through menopause, I'm not a medical person, I catch a lot of slack on it. Like for me, it's just this obsession that's rooted in women deserve quality of life.
Yes.
There's a ton of information on how not to get pregnant. There's a ton of information on how to get pregnant, and there's a little bit of information on how to feed your child after they're born. Aside from that, from a woman's standpoint, it's like, good luck.
Right.
Like, it's
Yeah.
on you to figure this stuff out.
And the other thing that's really bothersome to me, that a lot of times they look at women in this hysteria phase and they start, prescribing them Xanax and other things that are, mood altering, when it's not their mood that's the problem.
Not
it's
at
their
all.
hormones, or maybe their mood is an issue, but it's not being driven by something that's in a mental health arena all of the time. Sometimes it could just be their hormones alone.
Gayle, that's totally correct. When you think about the fact, as we mentioned, there are 50 hormones in everyone's body, right? So those hormones are sending out messages to our brain, to our cells, everywhere. It's not isolated. Your hormones serve a great purpose in sending these receptor messages. So there is a point where you think, okay, why am I so anxious? Why am I so depressed? Well, it's because your hormones are off and they're sending these false messages almost, or unhealthy messages to your brain. So it is so fixable and so solvable, but most doctors just don't have the time to cover it.
Yeah, and that's really sad. So what about the guys? Where do they come into all of this? I mean, is there such a thing as menopause?
Yes.
For me personally, when people say menopause, it drives me a little bit crazy. I'm
I'm sorry.
not from your standpoint, but I think what it does is it deters from, it takes attention away from what women go through. As a guy, our testosterone levels drop, and it's very gradual. Year by year, our testosterone levels drop. We put on some extra body fat, we lose some muscle mass, lack of energy. We can deal with low testosterone. When a woman goes through menopause, there's a pretty abrupt loss in ovarian function, which means that receptors in your brain, receptors all throughout your body that have been very dependent on estrogen, all of a sudden lose that. So the quality of life is significantly more impactful for women than for men. For guys, what we have to understand, what I believe, and I'm on a mission for this as well, there's a chapter in my book, chapter 4, specifically for the men. I kept it short because we don't have much brain capacity. For men, it's all about support. You have to support that woman in your life, your mom, your wife, whoever it is. Support. When they're having the hot flashes and night sweats, tell her you're cold too. Turn the air down to 42 degrees, right?
I love you.
Just deal with it. Just support them. They don't know what they're going through. Women are afraid. Their body's going through this craziness. The last thing a woman needs is for their significant other, the one person they need to rely on, to give them a hard time. Just support them.
Right.
All right. Any closing remarks, Martha?
No, and I, as a woman with a very supportive husband, totally spot on. But I will also say, like, do not, if your husband is saying, wow, I just feel less brain smart, or I'm feeling foggy, or I can't remember things. That is a signal to me, at least when my husband, when we could see his testosterone dropping, that is a signal to me that I need to be supportive of him and also educate him on his options as well for testosterone replacement and things like that.
I love it. We ended it on a balance. See that between the men and the women? Martha, Eric, thank you so much. All right, we are going to post this conversation on bloomtampabay.com. We'll be back with more Bloom right after this. Welcome back to Bloom. One way to prevent wrinkles is to not give them a chance to settle in. That's why the baby Botox craze is taking off. Joining me now is dermatologist Dr. Summer Moon and TikTok sensation and registered nurse injector Alessia Megna. Ladies, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So Dr. Moon, let's start with you. Tell me a little bit about the baby Botox craze.
So baby Botox is a term that we're seeing now a lot on social media. It's really prevention versus elimination of the lines. So in your 20s, 30s, even early 40s, patients are coming in and wanting to know what they can do to prevent the static lines. And so prevention is key. We use micronized, small little droplets superficially into the skin. It helps with wonderful things like the 11s, the crow's feet. Even you can do bunny lines above the lip, and even eyebrow lifts as well.
And Alessia, I know you started getting Botox yourself at 24. You became so passionate about this that not only are you a TikTok sensation, but you opened up your own med spa at the age of 24.
Yes, I did.
So tell me a little bit about why you decided to start early and why you're so passionate about it for your patients.
Yeah, so starting early with Botox is really important because you do want to prevent, as Dr. Summer Palmer said, you want to prevent the static lines from coming in the first place. So if you're preventing with Botox before you even have the lines, then you are preventing static lines, which are on your face even at rest when you're not making faces.
Yeah, and I'm going to let you both weigh in on this next question. I think people really need to understand that preventative Botox makes sense because you think of it like a piece of paper. It looks perfectly, beautiful, but once you fold it, you can never get that crease completely out. So when we talk preventative versus corrective, it's really hard to correct someone's face if they're late in the game with Botox.
Absolutely. I've been doing it since I was in my 20s, and so it's wonderful. I mean, it's the best thing that you can do to prevent the lines from forming, because once they are static, you have to use a lot more, you have to use many more units, and you also have to do it more frequently as well.
Not to mention the fact that you might have to get something more extreme. I started in my 20s as well. I'm 57 now, and there's really only so much you can do with plastic surgery, but you can keep the integrity of your skin and stay wrinkle-free by starting early. Would you share that same sentiment?
Absolutely, yes. So if you're starting early and you are preventing those lines from coming in the first place, then you are lessening your chances of having to do more extreme measures, as you are mentioning, to take care of those lines in the future.
And would you agree, Dr. Moon, that by not starting early, because some people might be sitting out there, and I 100% respect your opinion. No, 20s is too early. That's ridiculous. That's crazy. That's being over the top. But for me, it's been something that staved off anything that was major needing to be done down the line.
Absolutely. That's the same way I feel. I feel like doing it even just a small amounts early is going to really help you long term. It's just like putting your sunscreen on every day. There's long-term effects of that. So retinol each night, sunscreen in the morning, and your vitamin C, your antioxidants, and then Botox is just an extra step in your prevention.
And Alessia, I don't want to sign off before I ask you how our viewers can follow you. I know that you're hugely popular and you put out a lot of great information for all of us.
Yeah, so on TikTok, my name is Alessia at Nurse Injector, and you can follow me on Instagram as well. My Botox page is Everything Aesthetic Spa.
And then in addition, Dr. Moon just talked about things that we can do as well. Any advice that you put out on social media when it comes to anti-aging and taking smaller steps earlier on in the game?
Exactly as you said, smaller steps wins the race at the end. So doing small things now at a young age, it's going to prevent aging for sure in the long run. So
yeah, we're looking at some before
Botox,
and after pictures there.
Yep. Some fillers, Botox, yeah.
And when you're talking to a master injector like yourself, I mean, do you ever tap the brakes or help people tap the brakes? Because I know this could be something that you can go overboard with and do too much of. I mean, do you subscribe to like a slow buildup of where you want to be instead of extreme changes?
Absolutely. If someone were to come in and say, I want 10 syringes in my lips, I would never do that. I'm more of a natural injector, so baby steps for sure. Building up is so important.
And Dr. Moon, just the day-to-day skincare regimen can make all the difference in the world. And as you mentioned, sunscreen, because I think I'm especially noticing it now. I've spent so much time with sunscreen here. I forgot the rest of my body. And you can definitely tell a difference in the integrity of my skin on my face versus my body.
Absolutely. Your most important thing is your sunscreen, vitamin C, and your retinol each night. And then everything else is just extra. And I'm just going to kind of pivot off what she said. When I take care of Botox patients or anything cosmetic, I always ask them, what bothers you? And I let them know that specifically they're perfect just the way they are. We're just making minor improvements to improve what they see in the mirror.
All right, ladies, we really appreciate the conversation. It was a pleasure meeting you, Alessia, and Dr. Moon, thanks for coming back.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to share this story on BloomTampaBay.com. And before we go to break, it's time for today's Bloom Trivia question. True or false? Botox can be used for bladder control. We'll have the answer later on Bloom. You're watching Bloom, presented by Lifeguard Imaging. We begin where your checkup ends. Call now, 813-582-5222 to schedule your scan today. Grabbing bread wrapped in plastic filled with preservatives to keep on the shelf longer is not healthy, which is why one man is bringing back the forgotten art of bread making. Joining me now from Fearless Bread is Reginald Beck, who's making focaccia. Welcome, Reginald. It's such a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. A pleasure to meet you as well.
So you say this is super easy.
It is.
And if we realized how easy it is to make bread, we'd be eating healthier versions all the time.
Exactly.
So Reginald, how do we put it together?
Okay, well first what we're going to do is begin with a starter. We'll start with your water.
And how much did you put in there?
We did about, for this one, we only did about 1/3 cup of water.
Okay.
And then we're going to add about 1/4 teaspoon, roughly, of yeast.
So that's not a lot of yeast.
Nope, not a bit, because the starter is going to work overnight.
Okay.
Okay, and then we're going to add just a small amount, maybe a half of cup, roughly a half a cup of flour. All-purpose or bread flour is fine. Put that in there. And then all we do is take a regular spatula.
And stir that up.
Stir it up. And you sit this aside on your counter for about 8 hours.
So you're not refrigerating it.
Nope.
You're just covering it up. You're putting it in the counter. Maybe you could put it in your pantry.
Yes.
Seal it up.
Yes.
And it sits for, you said 10 to 24 hours?
Yes, 10 to 24 hours.
Okay, great.
All righty.
So then once we have that, what happens next?
Then what we do is we take it out. We'll set this to the side.
Okay.
Okay. And then what we'll do this is what it actually looks like afterwards.
And just those few ingredients turns into this.
Well, what we'll do is we're going to add a few more ingredients as well.
Okay.
Another couple of cups of flour, a little bit of salt, a little bit of yeast.
All right.
And then we wait about 1 hour or so, and then we get this mass right here. Now, once it's actually done, we'll take this out of the way. And now we take a baking pan.
All right.
Now we'll go ahead and dump that out with a spatula. Always good to use a nice wide mouth spatula. That makes it a lot easier.
Okay.
So we'll just
And you
dump
said
it.
the easy part about focaccia bread is that you don't need to put it in any form. All you need is a pan and some parchment paper, and then the rest, the dough does its own magic.
It does. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to have the parchment paper, but it's a little cleaner.
Okay.
It's your choice.
All right.
So put this away.
All right.
Okay, now the magic. Can you pass me the olive oil?
Sure.
Alrighty, so now it's time to get your hands a little dirty.
All right, I'm ready.
All right,
Got my
so what-
Bloom apron on.
This is going to be the dimpling.
All right.
So we pour it over, and then now all we do is we take a little oil on your fingertips,
Okay.
and you begin to use both and gently spread the dough out.
Never done this before. This is new for me. I'm staying quiet because I'm in a new learning mode here.
This is bread aromatherapy.
Okay, I like that.
Okay, very good. And now, let's see, you can use this.
Thank you. And that's basically it? After you add the seasoning?
And now you add your seasonings as you see fit.
All right, and
We'll
you're
put a little Italian seasoning on here.
Okay.
Add just a little coarse kosher salt.
And is that your preference for salts?
Yes,
Okay.
any coarse salt is usually good for the topping.
All right.
Okay. And then we put that aside in about a 450-degree oven, anywhere between 15 and 20 minutes. So let's put that in the oven here.
All right. And then this is our finished product. Are you adding the onions later in the cooking process, or can you add them at the beginning?
You can add them at the beginning
Okay.
or afterwards, whichever you prefer.
Okay,
I prefer
great.
to get them a little singed like that.
Okay, perfect.
So now we can clear some of this off of here,
All right.
and we can cut it. We're going to use a bread knife. Make sure when you're cutting bread, you use a knife that has some serrated edges on it.
All right.
So I'll let you do that.
All right, I'll do the honors.
We'll bring this over here.
Okay. Very
All right,
excited
you go
about
right
this.
ahead.
And then am I adding maybe a little balsamic glaze to it?
You are indeed. As a matter of fact, as you take a taste, I'm going to fix you something really special here.
Okay. While you do all the fixings here and I get ready to sample, we're going to put this entire recipe from Reginald. He's been kind enough to share it with us. What's your Instagram again?
It is @FearlessBread.
All right. Make sure you follow this guy. He's amazing. We'll be back with more Bloom right after this. Welcome back. Weight gain related to menopause is real, and those pounds start creeping up long before you hit that chapter in life. Here with ways to ward off the weight gain and avoid loss of muscle mass is the Happy Healthy Human Coach, Michelle Cuff. It is so great to see you.
It's great to see you. Thanks for having me back.
So one of the main things we need to think about is resistance training, and as women, we need to not be afraid of lifting heavy weights.
Right. And so what we're talking about today specifically is perimenopause, which is obviously can start around 40.
Okay.
And then menopause, which is when you haven't had a cycle in a year, so you're officially in menopause. And then we're talking beyond. So as you know, when we get to be around 40-ish, the things we used to do aren't working anymore.
Yes.
And those endless cardio classes, like as a zone 2, where you're just doing cardio all the time, all of a sudden you realize you're gaining weight. You've got
That's what happened to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was putting stress on my system.
Well, it's hormones.
Okay.
It's a hormonal problem, and I call this the George Michael curse. Remember that video, Freedom,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
all the supermodels? You and I
Yes.
are from that era, so we think that we're supposed to be skinny, but that's not serving us anymore, okay? So we're talking 3 specific hormones: estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So
Okay.
these are the 3 that start to tank as we get to this stage in our life. So to counteract that, we have to have resistance training in our lives. And I would beg women not to wait until this happens, but to start lifting ahead of time so that you already have the base there.
Okay.
Okay, so what's going to happen is estrogen and muscle mass are very related. So how do we build these hormones back up naturally? With the heavy weights. And I don't want to upset anybody, but I'm not talking the little 5-pounders that you do for 20 reps. We want to go to a weight that is so heavy that we can only get 5 to 6 reps in.
Okay.
Okay, so we're talking heavy leg lifts, heavy upper body. And this is where we want to graduate to, this is what I totally believe in. I have changed I'm building muscle now, and I am in menopause. So you can do it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so let's get started.
Okay, so I've got 2 leg exercises and then 2 upper body.
Okay.
So I'm going to show you this one. This is called a box squat, okay? So I've got a pretty decent weight here at 25. So what you're going to do, Gayle, is you're going to hold it here like a goblet. I want you to sit all the way down and then push through your heels and stand all the way up.
Okay.
Sit all the way down, core is in, stand all the way up. All right, I'm going to hand this to you.
Okay.
Okay, so just do a few. So I want you to feel, so keep that core tight. Now push through your heels up. Now at the gym, I will put a barbell on my back. Usually I go about 115 pounds, and you can go really heavy on this one. And as we know, as we get older, leg strength is so important for our overall health. Do you
And
feel
core
that?
strength too.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and you are working your core. You can feel it right now.
Yeah, because you need the core to stay
Right.
stable in order to sit up and
Right. So this
and
is
sit down.
targeting your glutes right now. The next one we're going to do, and I'm going to show you, is going to target your quads. And your quads, as you get older, very important. So I've got these little, this is going to raise my heels up.
Okay.
And since my heels are raised and I'm putting the weight in front, now this is going to target my quads, okay? So I want you to get down and up. Hold the weight right here in front of you. Squat, kind of like to knee length. You can always get a little bit lower and up, okay? And push that butt back.
Okay.
So be careful when you get your heels on there. I want you to be able to see it.
I got a lot of butt to push back.
That's right. Well,
Here we go.
Give me some of yours.
All right.
There you go. So, yep. So almost like you're really sticking that butt back and come down and up. That looks perfect. Maybe just a couple more. Do you feel it a little bit here?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is really good. These are 2 good exercises to build. And don't be afraid, ladies, to go heavy.
I like these little heel lifts.
Yes, these are good because it's transferring now. You're going to more work the front.
Yeah, and it's taking some of the pressure off my knees.
Okay, so now we're going to go to some upper body. So another really big muscle is your back muscles. So this is a 1-arm row, okay? So you're going to move the leg you're working back, the side she's going to hold on here. I want you to keep your chest up a little bit, and you're going to pull I want you to really focus on the pull, just steady, working that back. All right, so I want you to try it over here.
All right. And do I put my knee up here?
Nope, you just, you're perfect, just like that. So kind of look up a little bit. There you go, perfect. And really you're targeting right here, squeeze. So you look good when you leave the room, right?
I like that.
That's right, and you're getting a lot of your arm here too, but those back muscles can take a lot of heavy weight. You can go heavier than you think here. Perfect. That looks great.
All right.
All right, you can set that anywhere you want. And this last one is a 2-for-1.
Okay.
So I couldn't bring my 45-pound barbell. That would have been a little too much. So I went a little lighter here, but this is still really good weight. What you're going to do, Gayle, is you're going to curl, and then you're going to press it up. So it's almost like 4 movements, okay? So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, and then back down 4, okay?
All right, we're going to let you do it to break. I'll do it to break, actually.
Okay,
All right. And you can actually
I want
watch
you to
this
get one.
workout on bloomtampabay.com.
That's what I'm talking about.
And we'll be back with more Bloom right after this. There's a power couple in Tampa Bay helping people stay young. Joining me now are the creators of The Power of 5, the ultimate formula for longevity and remaining youthful, and your guide for healthy cooking and eating, Dr. David and Melissa Bernstein. It is great to see you both.
Great to see you again.
So let's talk about the Power of 5 formula that you both live by.
Well, I'm a geriatrician, and I studied this for my entire career. And it was difficult and a challenge to educate my patients about the things to live longer. But I consolidated things to 5 things that all begin with the letter S, and people can remember that. Avoid sweets or manage your sweets, manage your stress, get more sleep, sweat, and I say sex, but it's also socialization.
Okay, all right, and Melissa, you actually created a whole eating plan.
I did.
To help people embrace this philosophy.
Yeah, I'm in the sweets S is the realm of healthy eating. So, excuse me. So, it's really about eating clean and fresh fruits and vegetables, and staying away from processed food and anything with additives in them. So, eating as clean as possible. Nuts and legumes and things that are, just healthy for your brain, your heart, your body.
And your gut.
And your gut.
I mean, we're hearing
Absolutely.
more and more. I mean, Netflix just rolled out this whole new series
Oh.
about gut health, and it really it ties into everything. It seems to be the epicenter of our wellness. And I like it too, because Dr. Bernstein, you don't just focus on medicine alone, but you also focus on the way we should be living our life. And you talk a lot about, you both too, about living with grace.
Exactly. And just to finalize the point about eating, the Mediterranean diet is part of that whole thing, because people in the Mediterranean live healthy. But what I did is I looked back at my patients who had the most successful aging, and that's where I came up with my acronym GRACE, and that stands for goals, roots, attitude with gratitude and happiness, companionship and environment. And so I talk a lot with you about the importance of companionship. And we live that, Melissa and I, because we're really compatible. We have a project to live long and healthy, and it evolves around having our purpose in life, knowing what our DNA is, and doing things together. And Melissa was going to talk about 3 stages in life.
There are 3 stages really in life that we can kind of categorize. And one is that, in the early part of your life, you're getting educated, you've got friends, you're doing lots of things in terms of going through school and college. Next, if you're lucky enough to find love and get married and have children, and then you spend that section of your life just, dealing with children and dealing with running around with them, et cetera, and hopefully having them be healthy human beings. And then the last stage is when you're an empty nester, and then you kind of look at your husband and you say, oh,
You're here.
You're
still here.
You're still here. Exactly. And that's the time when you really have to look at what are your interests? What are the things that you like to do? And now it's time for us as
that's
a couple
important.
and us as an individually. And that is really important.
It is, and it should be something we do an entire show on what's next. But for now, I want to thank you both for being here. It's
You're
always
very
such a
welcome.
pleasure to catch
Same
up.
You're very welcome.
All right, we are going to post all of this incredible advice on bloomtampabay.com, and we'll be right back. It's time for today's Bloom Trivia question, true or false? Botox can be used for bladder control. The answer is actually true. According to the Mayo Clinic Health System, a urologist can inject Botox into your bladder to treat incontinence issues or an overactive bladder. This helps the muscles relax, which gives you more time to get to the bathroom when you need to use it. Well, we hope you'll tune in again on the next Bloom presented by Lifeguard Imaging. We're diving into the pages of Reclaiming the Fire in Your Belly, which offers a guide to revive your ambition and determination to succeed. And the Today Show's Joy Bauer is putting together the ultimate Mother's Day spring frittata. So stay healthy, everyone, and I will see you on the next Bloom. Call now 813-582-5222 to schedule your scan today.